Welcome to the A2 Show with Andrew Cass and Aaron Parkinson, bringing you the trends and topics that affect our lives the most: business, politics, fitness, family, and finance. With over 50 plus years of combined business experience and over $1 billion in revenue generated, your hosts have a unique gift for seeing many steps ahead where others do not. They bring their unfiltered, contrarian views to the show every week to help you win in business and in life.
Aaron, as far as winning in business and life, I think the toughest part of all of it is getting your kids to want to win in business and more in life than business. But we're going to talk about kids today because collectively we have 5 combined here, me 2, you 3. And we're going to talk about how to get your kids bought into creating a life and a culture of health, fitness, wellness, nutrition, really the things that I think are lacking the most in our world today. And these are things that we've done a pretty good job of with our kids. We'll talk about some of the things we found this year, previous year. We have teenagers. I have a new teenager. You have grown-up kids and teenagers. But what we're finding is that our sons, and this applies to daughters as well, our sons are buying in and really enjoying the fitness journey. And we thought we'd take a time out. One of our 5 core pillars is family, fitness, family, finance, politics, business, right? So we're going to take a little time out and talk about family, but as it pertains to kids buying into fitness and peak performance and really the things that are normally reserved for adults. But if I look back at my own life, it started when I was 14. I don't know when it did for you. I was a football player. You were a fighter and a soccer player. We didn't just show up on the scene when it came to fitness. We actually had to get into fitness and training at a really early age to be able to play at a high level later in life.
Yeah, I'm excited to dive into this today because you and I are kind of both going through it right now. We were talking about it and we were like, you know what, let's talk about it on the show. It's our show. We're going to talk about what we want to talk about. And I have 3 kids. One's 20, one's just turning 18, and one's just turning 13. I have 2 boys and a girl. You have a boy and a girl. How old's Nico now?
Nico will be 14 in December, my son.
Yeah.
And my daughter's 10.
Your daughter's 10. That's right. I always think she's a little bit older.
And you're
now.
13, 18, and 20.
That's right. My daughter's 20. She's off to university. My daughter, because of the way that her body is the cleanest eater on the planet. She's a vegetarian, which I know you hate.
No, I'm cool with that.
She's allergic to gluten and she's allergic to dairy. So
by the way, like most people that don't even know it.
Correct.
Right?
So she literally eats the cleanest food all day long. She's the healthiest looking human you've ever seen. She has to eat a lot to get in the nutrients that she needs. But she's pretty much off and running and she's okay. But when it came to the boys, I think part of what motivates a lot of business people, which is the majority of our audience that listen, is we're trying to set this foundation for our families where they can learn, they can grow, they can be healthy, they can have opportunity. And sometimes there's this balance that we bump up against where we're so busy on the business side that, we feel like it's a challenge to focus with them on the fitness side. And we kind of hope they'll do it themselves. But the reality is they probably won't. And so how do you start to create an environment or a system or a process that allows it to go from something that's uninteresting to something that becomes habitualized in an environment, quite frankly, that is much more difficult than when you and I grew up? And I want to unpack that a little bit.
Much more difficult, by the way. Much more difficult.
So I had an epiphany that I wanted to share with you, and I just saved it for the show today, that I had about 6 months ago. So when you and I were growing up, and you can tell me if your childhood was the same, the worst thing you could possibly do is ground me. Did you ever get grounded?
Oh, of
Andrew?
Of course. Many times. Lost count.
So I got grounded more than I like to remember. And if you don't know what the term grounded means, it means you either got to stay home or you got to stay in your room. In my particular case, I had to stay in my room. And I was very fortunate growing up in my room. I had my own stereo, I had my own television, I had my own video game system, my own Super Nintendo. So in theory, I had everything a kid could possibly
You were
want.
good with being grounded. I was the same.
I should be.
Yeah.
I should be good with being grounded, but I wasn't. I hated it. And the reason why I hated it was because I was very social. And when you're a kid, a lot of
You
the
are a
times
social guy.
I am a social guy. And when at an age, sort of that age between about 11 and 16, your currency isn't money. Your currency is friends.
Mm-hmm.
That's why there's so many like challenges with popularity and cliques at school and, you know, all of those things that can cause, you know, friction and depression and all that stuff.
Right.
Is your currency is friends. So for me, even though I had the TV and the stereo and the video game system, I wanted to be with my friends. And what my friends did is they were always out playing sports, or you went and you hung out at one of somebody else's house, or, you know, got on your bike and, you know, rode to meet your friends. And so that's all I wanted to do, was get out of the house to be with my friends.
I think that's the majority of kids in that age window also. They want to be out playing and doing things and with other kids. And that's that element of their life where obviously it was more so when we were kids because we didn't have the distraction of electronics and the internet.
Well, here's the epiphany I came to. The video game systems that I had back then were not connected to the internet.
Exactly.
So now almost every kid can instantly be with all of their friends.
Yeah, I know.
When they're tied into some online gaming community of some sort. And so when I walk in the room and say, guys, like, go outside, go see your friends, go do the things that I used to do,
Mm-hmm.
they look at me like I'm insane, because that's not where their friends are. Their friends are actually online gaming together. So when I try to force them to go out and do the things that I used to do, which was because I wanted to be around my friends, it's actually completely contrary to this current state of the union.
That's a really good
I'm
point.
ripping them away from their friends.
Mm-hmm.
So they fight tooth and nail to not go and do those things that we felt was natural. And that was the epiphany that I had, was, oh, now I understand why there's so much pushback on me, is I'm ripping them away from their friends, where I used to have to leave the house to be with my friends.
It's a really good point, and I think it's the way you laid it out. A lot of people probably hadn't realized that was the case because we didn't grow up into that.
And we didn't.
And I'm seeing it with my daughter now at 10. She loves doing video games with her buddies online, her cousin, her friends from school. I'm like, weren't you just at school with your friends all day? You want to like play a video game with them online now and from the phone? That's crazy. Get outside. I'm the same as you. But the way you lay it out, that's really perfectly put. It's a disconnect for them when we say that. For us, it makes perfect sense. But for them, it's like, what are you talking about? I'm hanging out with my buddies right now on this Roblox game or whatever the hell it is.
Yeah, and if I go out to the basketball court, my buddies aren't there. They're all together over here, but you're pulling me away from my friends, which is my currency.
Right.
And as I had this epiphany about 6 months ago, I said, oh, I'm fighting a much more difficult battle than I had originally anticipated.